right, is it time? It's time.
Hello, Diablo community. Welcome to another Diablo 4 Campfire chat.
That audio, though.
We have a lot to talk about today. I say that all the time. But I will say that
we have a lot to talk about today, guys.
We really do. Yeah, we will let the community decide. I promise you, this is a lot though. My name is Adam Fletcher. My name is Adam Fletcher. I'm the community lead for the Diablo franchise. Of course, I'm joined by a wonderful panel here, plus one other who is off camera and will be jumping in. We have Charles Dunn, who's a game designer on Diablo 4. Mr. Joe Shelley, who is the game director of Diablo 4.
I thought we were supposed to get
who's the associate game director of Diablo
Adam Jackson.
4. And we will be joined by Adam Jackson, who's the lead class designer of Diablo 4.
We like Adam.
Before we get to the class-specific information that we're going to share today.
Nice.
But I know Joe wanted to jump in, talk a little bit about some of the things we're going to be talking about today.
They were able to wake up Joe Shelley to make it to the campfire chat, guys.
Of changes coming to Diablo 4, and of course, details about the first ever PTR, Public Test Realm, for D4. And for people who don't know, Public Test Realm is kind of like a private server where players can actually end up playing early content and test that out and provide feedback to us. So we'll go through all the details on that as well. But Mr. Joe Shelley, want to kick it off?
Thanks, Adam.
Hit us with
it.
So
I want to frame this update. This is Season 4 update. We're going to talk a lot about systems here. And I wanted to do a little bit of framing.
Nice.
When we think about Diablo, right? Diablo is an ARPG. Everybody knows what an ARPG is, right?
Everybody.
It's an action role-playing game.
Everybody knows what it is.
But it's such a broad category, right? You have lots of games that are ARPGs. A game like Hollow Knight, for example, is an ARPG, but it's also a Metroidvania, right? Or a game like Hades, which is an ARPG, but it's also a roguelike. Or something like
is he about to tell us like why Diablo is different from other ARPGs? Right? Is he about to classify Diablo 4 as a different type of ARPG?
You could call it a Diablo-like, sure. But another way to describe it would be as a systems ARPG, right? An SARPG. So what distinguishes this kind of game from those other games that are in the same space, that are all ARPGs, right? And it's really about when you're making decisions and what the most important decisions you're making are. The most important decisions in a game like this are the decisions you're making before combat, between combat. Decisions you make in combat are important too, but those are the ones that are the most important. Action combat, RPG elements, and systems are all foundational elements of any ARPG.
My food's ready.
But in a systems ARPG, the systems in particular, including the end game, itemization, things like crafting, those are what comprise the soul of the game. And they're the lifeblood of a game like Diablo 4, and they don't just have to be deep, but also lush, prolific, exciting. So as many of you know, we've been designing this update for a while. We're putting it on the PTR because it's important, and it's important to get it right, like Adam was saying. And everything that you'll hear about today is from that S part of the SARPG, the soul of it. Joe, Adam,
Systems,
and Charles are going to take you through the changes, all the changes in detail. And there are a lot.
And that's not true, Hanky. I care a lot.
Grab a drink, get your React faces ready.
I care a lot about what the itemization stuff is doing and some other stuff.
Well, appreciate it, Joe. So I know what we want to do first. We
quit being cranky.
An agenda of items, but one thing we do want to talk about really quickly is about PTR. We do want to get some housekeeping notes and what players can expect from PTR, along with the dates for PTR, so when they can actually jump in. So Season 4 PTR is actually going to start on April 2nd, and it's actually going to run for a week through April 9th. So players will be able to jump into PTR and try everything out that we're about
April
to tell
2nd.
you all about here in this stream.
April 9th.
Now, I know a lot of people are probably asking, like, hey, that seems pretty close to the end of Season 3.
It is.
Is that enough time for
it's
you guys
literally
to
a
actually
week
react
before
to, the feedback that we're going to be getting from PTR?
The season starts.
And I will note here that we do plan on actually extending Season 3 for this. So Season 3 is actually going to have a new end date. We're pushing it back a few weeks to ensure that we get all the feedback from this PTR and we apply it to Season 4 to make sure that all these new system changes that we're doing are right. And,
you gotta be fucking kidding me, bro.
Based off of everyone's feedback. So Season 3 is now going to end on May 14th. And of course, with that, Season 4 also starts on May 14th.
The dumbest fucking shit.
Different changes coming
They're
on.
literally adding an extra month to Season 3.
Which actually notes like when the season is actually ending changed today, probably, with this new date for players so that, again, we can make sure that we apply.
So we get a week of PTR Season 4
on April 2nd through April.
And then
9th.
We wait
one other note is that, again, PTR itself is specifically for PC BattleNet.
And then you can play Season 4.
This just allows us to be a little bit more agile on our team. Does this mean
we get an extra month of the worst season we've had?
No, it doesn't. We are going to try to.
Well, no, I guess the worst season was Season 1.
PTR, when we do have a PTR to players in the future. But for now, this one is PC BattleNet only. So, and we'll have instructions of how to actually get into the public test realm client on Diablo 4 through the PC BattleNet client next week when we actually have.
I don't think anybody saw this coming.
Kind of all the details of how to do that well before the start of PTR.
If anybody said that they expected them to push the season start back a month.
There's probably going to be a lot of questions.
Ain't no way,
am
dude.
I starting with like a level 1 character? Am I taking my existing characters? Since PTR itself is a fresh new server, you will actually be starting fresh on PTR, but we do have boosting options available because we need players to actually jump in and test out some of these features that we're obviously
maybe the changes that we're getting in Season 4 will make it worth it.
I think we actually have a slide, I believe. Speaking of which, I know I'm actually bringing the camera back to me, Lucas. Sorry. I've seen a lot of feedback about, hey, you guys have a lot of slides. Sometimes the slides have a lot of information specifically in them that we need to actually showcase because there might be a lot of details in there. I will say we will have slides today because there's a lot to share, but we also have a live build. So we will actually be going to the live build to showcase some of the changes just because we know that a lot of players want to see more gameplay or see them in game. So we do have that here today. Okay. Now we can go to the next one. So, slide. So there will be PTR boosting features available for players that are jumping into PTR. You will be able to boost a character immediately up to 100. When you do that, you will receive 100 million gold and 1,000 obols. You can do this multiple times. You can even trade amongst gold across your characters, of course. And then we will also mark the campaign completed for your character, as well as offering you a mount, all your skill points, and more. Skill points again. Paragon, Fog of War will be completely cleared. Altar of Lilith points will also be cleared. It's actually going to match the renown progress on your original Diablo 4 account. So if you've already done all your renown rewards and everything, you'll end up getting that completely covered off on your character for PTR. And of course, all the class system mechanics, things like enchantment for sorcerer.
Dude, I was looking so forward to being able to start the new season in only a couple weeks.
Enabled for you for this character that you end up creating for PTR or any other characters that you create. And then all your Paragon glyphs will be unlocked.
Hello.
And legendary.
Guess I'm playing more Last Epoch for
and I believe glyphs are
a few months.
Yeah, glyphs are maxed.
Yeah, glyphs are also maxed up. So you will have that capability there. There are like a few things that will be not present in PTR, but that is for example, one of the things is Codex of Power, but we'll explain why here in a minute. There's some more details related to Codex of Power for players to kind of understand why that's not present there. So we will
I don't really play D4 for the crafting.
For the PTR across all our different social channels, across all our different community channels. And we will be turning on a specific PTR forum on Diablo4.com. That is not on right now, so no one can actually see it. But once that does come online, we will also be checking feedback there. So please provide feedback based off of everything that you are hearing today and playing through during PTR between those dates that we actually mentioned, because the team is going to be looking at it and making sure that we can make any changes before the start of Season 4. So with with that, now that we've gotten through the PTR like housekeeping notes,
to be honest, like what a terrible way to start this stream.
Let's dive in.
There is quite a bit to cover today, so we're going to try to move briskly through parts where we can.
It's like literally like, I guess they're trying to start at the very bottom so they can only go up.
The first, Charles will be bringing us through a number of itemization and crafting changes you're going to see when Season 4 goes live. I want to also be very clear that the changes we're talking about today are all going to be on the Eternal Realm and on the Seasonal Realm. Not actually talking about the season specifically today. We're really talking about this massive item update and these other updates been happening kind of in parallel to season development during this time. So that's me the first part. The next, I'll be guiding us through some of the new endgame content that we're going to be implementing and integrating into the Season 4 release. And then Adam Jackson is going to be coming on to talk about a lot of the live class updates we're making across the various mechanics of the game. So there's a lot to look forward to. Let's go ahead and just, I guess, dive right in. Charles, if you don't mind taking us away.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start talking about itemization. So when we think about the itemization updates, I think it's really helpful to frame this conversation around some of the goals that we have for the itemization update. So our number one main goal here is to focus on quality of items over quantity of items.
Good.
So one of the persistent points of feedback that
I want to find better items,
Diablo 4 last year,
not just items.
A lot of the items that you find in dungeons and throughout the game, you end up just sifting through a lot of items, searching through your inventory, and reading a lot of lines of text, and ultimately a lot of the items just end up being junk for you, and that was never really it never really felt great, and so. With this update, that's been our driving.
Maybe they're going to announce a loot filter.
Is to focus on making sure that when we do give you items, they're high quality items. They're much more likely to be useful for your build, rather than just flooding you with endless streams of often junk items.
Okay.
The second goal we have here is that the best items in the game, the really pinnacle ones that you get at the end game, they have a journey associated with them. As I said before, you were kind of sifting through your inventory and looking for these items, but once you found it,
are we getting a better crafting system?
You were pretty much done. It was basically a complete item, and you're already done with the item. You've completed it. We think that the game is a lot more engaging when you have a bit of a journey, an investment, whether it be in time, crafting materials, and you really get to customize and make items your own. And make it feel like this is for me and my build and my character.
Yeah, and feel that power progression too. It's so critical to the experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And the third goal that we have here is to focus on moments of surprise and delight in the itemization chase.
We need more Pog crazy moments.
Leads to moments of, hey, I found the item. You get really excited about it. And you're just,
like when I found the Ring of Mendel.
These infrequent moments. It's not going to be all the time, but when you do find it, you're going to know it. You're going to feel it. You're going to be really excited.
When I found the grandfather.
So with that, we have a number of topics within the itemization update. So the overview here is that we've got updates to existing systems, such as base items,
greater affixes, masterworking.
A few additional updates that are kind of adjacent.
Oh man, it sounds like we're getting more crafting.
We've got
what were you saying, Goops? Said they weren't going to make crafting better?
Those are going to be some really big wins.
They're trying, man.
We also have some new systems being introduced here. We've got tempering, which is going to be a new customization system. Greater affixes, which help to provide some chase in the end game. These are going to be some of those powerful items, ones that have
greater affixes, so
and
exalted
once you do
items.
Reach that end game with great gear, you're going to be able to masterwork it to really unlock its full potential and upgrade it to the best possible version that it can be. So let's hop into some of the base item updates.
So who thinks they're literally just about to copy Last Epoch?
Smaller pool of affixes that are more relevant and more potent for your specific build. So as I kind of mentioned earlier in the goals section,
I'm not, but if it's there, I'm obviously going to do it.
And stats that appeared on items, they were often very conditional, right? You had like damage while
like if it's in the game, I'm going to do it.
Close enemies or things that were hyper specific and ultimately just were kind of meaningless in a lot of ways. They blended together. We're really focused in this rework, we're focusing on reducing that pool of affixes to be more general. They're more applicable to a lot of builds. They're not going to be this hyper-specific conditional.
Good.
And they're going to be more potent.
No more extra damage on Tuesdays.
Ranks of a single core skill. Sometimes on gear, you would find items that have ranks of upheaval, ranks of whirlwind, and ranks of double swing, all on the same item. And almost no build wants all 3 of those things at once. So we've made it so that, hey, only one of these can appear. That makes just the subset of items that you find much more likely to be relevant for you. And in terms of like being more potent, we're looking at things like in World Tier 3, only sacred items are going to appear. And then once you get into World Tier 4, only ancestral, only those most powerful versions of items will appear. This means you're just getting less junk, right? Sometimes you'd get, sacred items in World Tier 4.
Wait, hold on though.
Great, because hey, I'm in World Tier 4, I should be getting the best
items. Isn't that
going to
like make it so the other change they made is like pointless now?
Affix values to make sure they're
or like when you would find lower items, it would auto salvage them.
Really equip an item.
Isn't that going to happen now? Now you're going to have less crafting materials
in the past,
for free?
You might get an item that said, plus 2% critical strike chance, and honestly, it was hard to ever notice that, or like plus 5% damage or something like that. And those really small values were just hard to ever notice when you're swapping it, and it never felt like you got to upgrade your gear.
Right.
So let's take a look at some examples here.
Yeah,
oh, right. So the other update is that we are reducing the total number of affixes on gear that initially drops. So legendary items used to drop with 4 affixes, 4 lines of stats. That's going down to 3. And then rare items, the yellow items, used to have up to 4, and now they'll just go down to 2. And yeah, so the goal here, once again, is to really focus on the quality of the affixes that appear on the gear rather than just the pure quantity. And this also gives us room to build on it in some of the later crafting and tempering systems.
We're not getting weaker.
You are going to get more
affixes, are like doubled.
The base item is going to start with a little bit less, just so we have room to grow.
And instead of this like damage to shadow damage over time, it had just flat like
are the items that players
plus damage.
Situations where you find like a really, really powerful template item. So you get a max roll helmet with CDR and such, right? Like these are still really important.
It's less affixes, but they're generally just overall stronger affixes.
Legendary items and unique items.
So we're not getting weaker.
Also be tradable in the starting in Season 4. This is a big change for us. Now, one distinction here to keep people on, to let people keep this in mind, is that crafting on either of these items, whether you're going to be tempering or masterworking or anything else later on down the road, these things like enchanting does today, these make these items account bound. So you can't trade them once you get them after you've done some crafting on them. So we think this does a great job of making sure that the trade economy is still interesting, and that when you're looking for a specific item or
double the base stat on the item,
it's going to be a lot easier for you to go ahead and hand those
things. 23% damage to all your skills, not just your shadow damage over time.
Adam Jackson.
Adam Jackson snuck in.
Is easily stronger than having some stupid fucking affix that doesn't do anything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very important note, and I know a lot of people, might have saw this and thought, "Oh, rare items."
Like,
are
oh no, this wand is losing lucky hit up to a chance to execute injured non-elites. Oh no, I'm so much weaker because I lost that affix.
Oh, and also, I should say uber unique items are not going to be tradable. In Season 4.
Everything that isn't an Uber.
Yeah, everything that is not an Uber unique.
An Uber unique, yeah. Those are the most powerful items, and if you want those, you're going to have to go and find them yourself.
That's right.
Those are the most powerful items in the game there. All right, so let's take a look at a closer example here. So we've got, kind of on the left before.
I feel like you're arguing just to argue now, Hanky.
This was before.
Like, ain't nobody using lucky hit chance to execute in their final build.
And you can see how it's got, plus intelligence, vulnerable
ain't nobody
damage,
using that.
Damage to shadow damage over time affected enemies. That is a mouthful. Same with the lucky hit chance to execute injured non-elites. These are the really hyper-specific affixes that we're talking about that really bloat items. It takes a while to parse this. Like, you just can't at a glance tell, hey, is this even good for me?
Yeah, reading through a number of conditional additive damage modifiers is like when you're like item to item, it's just very, it is taxing.
Especially when you really fill up your inventory with 30 plus of these items, trying to sort through them all at once when you just really want to get back into the action, right? You want to get back into fighting demons.
Like, item on the right blows item on the left out of the water.
Update in the after section here, we have got a similar item. It has intelligence. It has plus damage. That just applies to all of your damage. It's not hyper specific. And we still do get give you a larger bonus if you're hitting vulnerable enemies with this.
Can you get an item now that gives you like int, dex, and strength on it?
No, in fact, because this wand just has intelligence on it. It is just the main stat for your class. So if you are a sorcerer, you're only going to find intelligence on items. If you're a bard, you're only going to find strength, and so on.
I can still find all stat, right?
Yes. Yeah, you still have all stat, but no more are you going to find, oh, I got intellect on my barbarian. That's just basically a completely dead stat for you.
Good.
Got it.
All right, so let's talk about some of the other additional updates that are kind of adjacent to the main itemization updates. Legendary item drops from monsters that are level 95 or higher are always going to be at item power 925. That is the highest item power in the game. And once you're really facing the toughest monsters in the game, we want to make sure that you're constantly getting the best possible items. This really comes back to our idea of quality.
Not a horrible comparison at all.
Once you're
I found so many items like the one on the left all the fucking
really
time.
Care about anything that isn't 925, so why are we dropping that for you, right? You're going to be kind of graduating out of caring about item power because you just know that everything I'm getting is the maximum item power. Next, we've done a pass to update our gems. They are a little bit simpler. Some of the gems used to have, once again, those very conditional
simpler,
things
better,
like
and have a
critical
much
strike
longer
damage to
crafting
vulnerable
tail.
enemies was like one
So we get
stat on
better
one gem.
gems?
So we've kind of simplified it. So we now just have bonus critical strike damage or bonus vulnerable damage. We've also added some updates to have core stats on them. So some of the gems will have strength, some will have dex, and so on. And they'll have a little bit of a longer crafting tail.
Yeah, like because you had ones that were like, you now do more critical damage to crowd-controlled enemies.
Power level.
You now do more critical damage to vulnerable enemies.
Excess gems will now
They're
sell
condensing
for quite a
that
bit more
to just
gold,
more critical
so
damage.
That way you're not really going to waste once you have kind of found those best gems.
They're trying to get rid of all the
Additionally,
like.
we've done a pass on the salvage, crafting, and rewards have all been retuned for this new world where we're dropping less items than before. Once again, we're focusing on you have less time sorting through your inventory and more time getting back in the action, more time slaying enemies to find those items.
Yeah, there's much less cruft in this version of the feature, right?
Yeah.
Like you're not walking out of a nightmare dungeon with 25 items.
That's good. You can get Forgotten Souls
back
from
at the,
that.
blacksmith.
But the ones that you do have are much more likely to be relevant and useful to you when you do find them. Additionally, we've item rerolling, the enchanting system at the Occultist. We know this has been, it has like a scaling gold cost currently, and that just keeps on ramping up. If you want to keep fishing for that perfect affix, it could cost millions upon millions upon millions of gold. We put a cap on that. We don't think it's really healthy to have that actually scale infinitely. It'll still get a little high, but it's not going to go to infinity. We've taken a pass on the materials, the crafting materials, things like ore and herbs, and some of the other crafting materials in the game. And a lot of the ones we had some variety of like common herbs, so that were found in different zones, and there was some nice flavor there, but ultimately they didn't really provide much compelling gameplay. So we've consolidated all of like the common crafting materials into just a single type, just basically common herbs. And then there are still some rare ones to find to craft the most powerful elixirs and so on. But we've simplified that system so your collection is a little bit easier and more streamlined.
Yeah, we also removed things like there's like a lot of monster parts like Pale Tongue and things like that have been removed as part of this experience. It's gonna make it a lot easier to craft elixirs in this new world.
Absolutely.
So, you don't have to scroll through that tab so long to see exactly what material you want to craft with. Yeah.
Especially when they ultimately just fed towards that same goal. And then the final update we've got is updates to the Forgotten Souls, right? So the late game crafting material that you use for a lot of the enchanting or other crafting systems, we're making them a little bit more accessible. They'll come from Whispers of the Dead caches, and they can also rarely drop globally from any elite in the game. And this is a really cool moment that you kind of have this jackpot
I don't know.
moment.
To me, all these changes so far sound pretty fucking good.
Elites, but there's a moment where you just get like this explosion of loot, and it spits out a ton of the Forgotten
I'm annoyed
Souls
that the season
or
got
other
pushed
loot
back,
or,
but so far the
other crafting
itemization stuff
materials.
sounds
and
good.
That's a really exciting moment when you encounter it in game. It's pretty rare, but you kind of hit the jackpot when that does happen.
And for Forgotten Souls, that can happen outside of Helltide, right?
Oh yeah, that can happen on literally any elite in the game. Yep. Also, we're looking at updating our uniques. So unique items are, these really build-defining, flashy, unique items, right?
You can find uber uniques from monster level 55.
They're locked behind just World Tier 3 and onward. They're really late game items. And we thought that to really get you into the fun faster, to get your build online, we've made it so that many of our uniques in the game can now start dropping in World Tiers 1 and 2. So you can start getting them earlier on in the experience and really get your build going much quicker. And then once you do get into World Tier 3, then all of the uniques in the game have the potential to start dropping, including Uber uniques, which are typically those very late game chase items. There is a chance
you know there's somebody that's going to find a Shaco at like
drop
level 50 or something?
It's a pretty small chance. It's very rare. But it's one of those moments that you're going to find,
all right.
you know,
All crazy.
if you're really lucky, you might find a Harlequin's Crest
Yeah, you
at
remember
level
that
55.
You'll remember that playthrough for sure.
Oh, you definitely will, right? And of course, they'll drop.
I was gonna say, kind of going back to our goals of the itemization update in general, is that, you know, like at any time something really exciting can happen, right? That's the main impetus for doing this, is that even early on in the game, you can get the main thing that you're looking for. It's going to be very rare, not very common, but it's possible. And even some of our other updates coming that you're going to explain is kind of going along that vein, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We want you to have the chance to really have that high roll moment, a really exciting moment when you find that awesome loot. So that covers the additional updates. We've got to talk about the Codex of Power. Right, so the Codex of Power is a system that has been in the game since launch, and we're making a big update here where now all legendary aspects in the game will start appearing in the Codex of Power. Every single one. Previously it was just a small subset, and I believe we even have some in-game footage that we can talk and go through an example of what this looks like.
Yeah, we'll jump over to that. We have behind the scenes, we actually have Ruben, aka Bloodshed, former content creator, now part of the Blizzard team here on Diablo. He's actually driving us through our build here, but he will be driving through all our little demos that we have today. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, so you can see in our inventory right now, we've got Edgemaster's Siege Bow. And this has a little icon on it in the upper right in your inventory there. And that indicates that if you salvage this legendary, it will upgrade an aspect in the Codex of Power when you salvage it.
That's right. So you no longer need to go to the occultist to extract aspects in any way. Because aspect crystals are no longer a thing in this new version of the Codex of Power.
Yeah, aspect crystals are gone.
That is
it's
good.
It's just when you salvage the legendary, it will upgrade it. So we salvage it. We can see that Edgemaster's aspect has been upgraded in the Codex of Power.
They listen to
So we go to our
feedback.
Codex of Power, and let's go take a look. So we've got Edgemaster's aspect here. That skills deal up to 6% increased damage.
This is really fucking good
when cast. So that is the kind of legendary rank of the one that we just salvaged.
Holy shit.
Now this says 6% here. In game it was 12% because it was on a two-handed bow, and that doubles the range. But you can see it's not a minimum roll. Right now on live Diablo 4, it's always just a minimum roll.
Bro, Hanky, just admit at this point there's nothing they could say that you would like.
The Codex is kind of irrelevant.
Be excited
now
about.
The Codex will continue being relevant because every time you find a higher roll of it, it's going to upgrade your Codex, and you can continually re-imprint this legendary power onto any gear that you find going forward.
That's right. So if Ruben finds a 10% roll, on something else, then that is now going to, he can go ahead and salvage that item down. That 10% version is now going to replace the 6% version he has right now. And that's the new version that you have. So when we're talking about upgrading, what we really mean is like as you find the better versions of these aspects,
so now,
replace the older ones. Now,
when you find that shockwave aspect on your druid, now it's in the Codex. Now so you can just start slapping it on whatever you want all the time.
Super lucky, you have it forever.
You are super lucky, and you would have that forever. Yes, you can continue to re-imprint it. However,
but it is hanky, so he'll never find it anyway.
Of legendaries, you won't be able to find a max roll of these legendaries in World Tiers 1 and 2 when you're just starting out your journey. We have extended the range, so a lot of legendaries used to say, hypothetically, if a legendary rolled between 20% and 30%, now we've extended that range from 20 to 35%.
If you're not interested in the way they're changing the affixes on items and stuff to make it like less bloat and less bullshit,
those are only going to be accessible.
I don't know what to even say then.
In the later
like if you don't care about that at all,
this does give you a bit more of progression. So you can find it early and you can upgrade it.
I don't know.
But then you're going to find even better versions as you progress through the world tiers.
And if we actually, can we go back to the build really quickly? Because, Ruben, if you can pull up the Codex of Power really quickly.
To show the UI a little bit here.
Yeah. Because one big thing is like I know we glazed over this really quickly, but there are filters, ways of searching through everything, which is really nice. And then, of course, on the icons as well, I think people are probably seeing these numbers associated. I know it's something that is changed obviously with this new Codex of Power, where it's showcasing like, hey, there's a golden version of Aspect of Quickening Fog right there, which is already showcasing, hey, you have it completely maxed at 16 out of 16. And of course, there's different ranks as you're kind of like leveling up throughout the Codex Power and finding different aspects of it.
Yeah, I really love that gold border to really indicate that, hey, you found the best version, you've kind of completed this. And some of them, you kind of cheat on it, right? Things that only have one rank. As soon as you unlock it, you get the best version.
Yeah, that's an example of one that you could max out in World Tier 1.
Well, having to sort through less loot.
Most of them have now up
and
to
the loot
16
you get
ranks
feeling
is kind
more
of our
relevant
standard,
and better.
For the most part. And those
will probably make it feel less tedious to play.
And for a lot of these
So
aspects,
you'll actually be like playing the game more instead of just looking in your inventory.
Potency of these aspects upwards, right? We didn't water it down. We actually extended it up.
Yeah, for the most part, these have increased in power at the highest level, just to make them really rewarding in World Tier 4 when you find them.
And I'm sure there's people asking specifically about, hey, is this a seasonal thing? Is this an eternal thing?
This is everywhere forever. This is the new world.
This is the new world.
That's right. All the updates we're talking about today,
Correct.
once again, are for the Eternal Realm and for the Seasonal Realm. These are not seasonal updates only.
Yeah. They're coming with Season 4, but they are applying to the whole game. Forevermore.
And I do want to note, like, Codex of Power with seasonal characters, of course, will end up change like every single time there's a new season.
Yes.
It does.
Yeah, the same way that it does today.
But eternal characters, we'll just have
you
it
can
forever.
actually fill it out
eternally.
forever,
Yes,
eternally.
Of course.
There you go.
All right, so that was a ton on the systems that already exist in the game, right? The base item affixes, the other updates, and Codex of Power. But there's also new systems coming.
We're not done with itemization.
That was updates to existing things, but we have got a lot of new stuff. So let's talk about tempering. Tempering is a new crafting system that will allow you to add really cool new affixes to your items. And so I really just want to highlight that this is not just taking those old really conditional nitty-gritty aspects or affixes. This also includes a lot of really new exciting affixes as well that we'll showcase a bit later. Things like a chance to cast bonus projectiles, increased effect size of your skills, and other ways of talking directly to individual skills. A lot of this lives in tempering. And so this way you can really customize
What's my special minion affix?
Specifically to your build and the skills that you're using and the way you want to play.
Chance for my minions to have AK-47s?
So well, how do we temper? We've got tempering manuals. So these are manuals that are going to drop from most content in the game. This isn't something you need to go target farm. You're just going to find these as you're playing. And these manuals are going to be a list of possible affixes that are kind of themed to individual builds. So if you are a bone necro, for instance, the manual for bone necro might have things specifically to bone spear and bone splinters and bone spirit. When you do the tempering, which is done at the blacksmith, it will attach a random one of the affixes from that manual onto the item.
You guys think this sounds a little bit like?
And if you don't get the exact one that you want,
maybe I wouldn't use the word tempering durability. Maybe I would say something like, I don't know,
durability.
Origin potential comes to mind.
We've got an example where we can just
does it sound anything like maybe like that? I don't know.
Right, so here's some screenshot examples of the actual recipes that appear. So on the left, we've got the Manual of Natural Motion. This is a generic recipe that really applies to any class. It's got a variety of movement speed options on it. So you've got, you might just attach movement speed.
Hands for bone splinters, cast twice, bone spirit explosion, bone storm duration.
We have the option to reduce your evade cooldown or give you mobility skill cooldown reduction. We've tagged a lot of skills in the game with mobility tag when, things like teleport or
I don't care if they copy it at all. I just think it's funny, like the timing on it.
On the right, we've got one that is more specific to necromancers because this is the bone necro one that I mentioned before. So we've got a chance for bone splinter projectiles to cast twice, chance for bone spear projectiles to cast twice, increase the size of your bone spirit explosion,
that's very cool.
Or increase the duration of your bone storm. So if you're a bone necro,
all right, what are the minion ones going to be?
Pretty relevant.
I got a feeling the minion ones are going to be shit.
A cool way of customizing your character and your skills. So here's an example of the UI. So on the left, we've got this Choker of Ancestral Charge, one of my favorite legendaries, currently on Season 3. And so it's got the relatively simpler affixes. It's got just max life, damage, and critical strike chance. And we go to the blacksmith. We put it into the menu here, and we can see that there are kind of 6 categories, with 5 of them being highlighted. These categories are the categories of recipes. So each recipe corresponds to one of these categories. And on amulets, you can put anything except the weapons category. So that's why offensive, defensive, utility, mobility, and resource are all highlighted here. And once we go through this, we can do this twice because most items can only be tempered once. You can get just one affix on them. But ancestral items, these really late game World Tier 4 items, can be tempered twice from 2 separate categories. So you can't put, say, 2 defensive ones on there. You're going to diversify.
That's why they lowered the amount of affixes you get on items.
Reduction added on the right. And we've also got some bonus.
So you didn't have something with just
so we've
like
got an offensive one here, and then we've got
so much fucking shit on it
that gives us the cooldown reduction. Do we have a live example of this, of going through this actual flow, so we can kind of show you what this ends up looking like?
Yep. Once again, yep, that was right there.
Look.
Points at the blacksmith.
Yes. So in here we've got our bow of branching volleys. We can put in here because this is a weapon. We can attach ones from the offensive category, and so here's all the examples. We've got 5 different recipes that we've unlocked here, depending on how we want to build our character. So if we want to do, say, marksman skills to put on there, we can do
the more ways to customize the character, like the way you want to play it.
Why don't we just temper it and see what it looks like? So we get this flashy animation that comes in, and we get to see, hey, we added 29% marksman damage.
Yep.
Right?
Actually worked out quite nicely, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Not scripted, by the way.
Definitely not scripted. So yeah.
Actually, it wasn't. But
it actually was.
You were actually lucky, but
you're in the grips of RNG.
Yeah.
One thing I want to call out also while we're looking at this is that so we are in the season 4 update, or this PTR update that we're talking about right now. This is our first PTR update. There's a lot of changes we have going in, and there's some things that are going to be are kind of in the middle of being polished now, or kind of getting wrapped up for some things in dev. So there's going to be some things that players will see on the PTR. They're going to feel like, oh, this is not quite like what I expect, or there's they might find bugs and things.
Yep.
That's kind of the nature of the PTR experience. Yeah. We want you to report those, like Adam called out a little bit earlier, and get your feedback on the experience.
Yeah, that's actually a really good reminder, because I think a lot of people haven't experienced PTR, especially if you're kind of new to Diablo and you do jump in. PTRs will have bugs. It is
no way, dude.
Yeah, so there will be bugs, polished things that won't be incorporated. So yes, provide.
I mean, the live game has bugs.
So that we can actually.
Why would we think the PTR wouldn't?
Changes for those.
But if we throw back to Ruben real quick, the thing I wanted to point out was when the masterwork, when the tempering process went through, so you got 28% for the that marksman damage, but the item itself got a slightly different number. There's just a bug that we've identified that we're in the middle of fixing right now.
Right, that's just a display bug, but this is one of the things that we're working on, we're aware of, and going to polish up, because that's the nature of game development.
Just for the eagle-eyed among the viewers.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the thing.
All right, so a few other things to call out here. Let's actually close this menu and then take a look at when it's in there. We can talk about tempering durability a little bit. So you can see when this is in here, we've got tempered affixes, 1 out of 2. Because this is an ancestral item, you can temper it twice from 2 different categories. So you're going to be able to put 1 weapon and 1 offensive on there. And then there's this tempering durability remaining. So this is how many times you can re-roll the tempered affixes. The first ones that you attach should not be consuming tempering durability. I think this one might have one of those bugs where it did consume it, but ultimately this is going to be the number of times you can re-roll.
Yeah, we're actually going to update the string. I think it's going to literally be called tempering re-rolls.
Re-roll.
Yeah,
okay.
to make it really, really clear. Yeah.
Yeah. This is the kind of things that we're actively working on, and we love your feedback on to make sure that we can get this right and really communicate the way the system works. So we've attached an offensive affix onto this. Let's take a look at some of the weapon ones that we can attach on. So here we've got ones that not great.
Live build.
Yeah, live build indeed.
Live build.
Perfect.
Well, so we can talk through what would have happened.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
We know what to expect.
We're
going to crash the desktop.
Those are often the ones that are the more, I would say, more interesting, right? The bonus projectiles, bonus effect size.
Yeah, that was the weapon category that had a chance to create different, multiple bone splinters. Or
perfect display of what's going to happen.
That's in the weapon category. So there we would attach one of those. Maybe we'd get a chance for rapid fire projectiles to fire an extra time. And then when we do that, maybe, we actually want to play a penetrating shot build, right? Or maybe rapid fire is not that great. We could consume one of the tempering.
They were just giving us the hanky experience, because that's what's going to happen to hanky every time.
Projectile ones that we want.
At least people now believe it's live.
Do people still think we weren't doing it live?
Looking at it. But yeah, I know we're getting the build back up here and everything. But
there's a lot of really cool new affixes in general inside the tempering system. Like I know that I've been playing a lot of Season 4 like on our dev build. And I'm playing a Barbarian right now, and I've been playing a lot with Dust Devils, which I know we'll talk maybe a little bit more about
we're
later.
Gonna talk about Dust Devils.
But there's like opportunities to like spawn, like instead of spawning one Dust Devil.
Man, are they really going to try to buff Dust Devils again?
There's a lot of really duration.
Let it go, man.
New things to play with to build upon other like playstyles. I think it's really fun.
Yeah. That's really the goal of tempering is customization and really cool new ways of building your character. That's not just plus damage. There is still some bonus damage as you still need to in order to actually do damage. But there's a lot of ways you can customize your skills.
Mo damage, mo better.
Really your own.
Now, right now, you can temper legendary items.
Correct.
And rare items, but you can't temper unique items.
Correct. Unique items. What you see is what you get, right? They drop still with.
What about masterworking?
For the most
Can I
part.
masterwork a unique item?
Those are going to be unchanged. You won't be able to temper onto them.
With tempering, yeah.
With tempering, right.
And then we show the tempering durability, as part or tempering rerolls in this case. So the idea here is that like when the player has you're not happy with all the affixes you've got, you've kind of rerolled through all of your options. At the end of that process, you simply can't temper any longer on that item. There's not a way to reset that item back down. One of the goals that we have for ourselves in terms of like trying to have higher quality drops in general is to make it so it's a little bit easier, and also ensuring like it's easier for you to reach.
Surely they don't also add
when you start to really
legendary potential to the game.
Like this. Is you want to make it a little bit easier for you to go find some of those really good baseline template items for you to start building on top of, as opposed to having it be like I need to find like 70 helmets in the hopes I find a max roll cooldown reduction on it, right? Like we're in a different place now in terms of how we're thinking about that. In addition to the crafting, the trading changes that we've made as well. Want to make it a little bit easier for you to find some of these things between it being a lot easier to have drops that are relevant for you appear when you're doing various types of content, but also that if you're playing with friends, there's opportunities for you to maybe trade some things around at the same time.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point about finding really strong base items to build off of. And I think that goes great into our next point where we talk about greater affixes. So greater affixes are affixes that appear in the late game. They are more powerful versions of the normal affixes. So
exalted
they
items
come at a 1.5x multiplier on the affixes max roll. So let's say a hypothetical affix might come between like 50 to 100 of a stat. If it rolls greater, then you actually get 150 of that stat instead. Instead of the roll, it always comes in at max. So it comes in at that 150 mark. These are really exciting drops when you get into the late game. They're going to be immediately obvious whenever they drop on the ground. They're going to have a little change to the UI, so you can see it right away. You know, hey, that one has greater affixes.
Is it going to have like a purple
and that's
glow?
Be ones that you're really going to want to pick up.
That would make it really easy for me to see it.
And then you really want to build off of because they're some of the strongest affixes in the game. I think we've got an example here. And one other note, these, as I mentioned, they're late game. They only appear on Ancestral Legendary items and Ancestral Uniques that are dropping in World Tier 4. I think we can zoom in on the top one here.
Oh, so you can get...
See, we've got a little... like
so you can get uniques with greater
affixes.
affixes.
This pair of gloves has 2 greater affixes on it. And when you actually go and pick it up, we can take a look at the tooltip of the item itself. And we can see that intelligence here is highlighted, and so is critical strike damage. And these roll at the max roll, and I think we've got a comparison kind of between a standard version. So on the left is a a non-greater version of a dagger. You've got say 74 dexterity, and maybe it rolled between 70 and 84. But on the right, we've got a greater version of dexterity, and that's going to always give you 126, which is 1.5 times the 84. Same with the critical strike damage down at the bottom. So if you find
it'd be nicer like if they had a different glow.
I mean, not only do
instead of like you have to look and see if there's like a certain Roman numeral next to it on the ground.
Base item to start building through the tempering system on. Thing we've got the next topic to talk about is masterworking. Masterworking is a late game crafting system that we're going to use to upgrade the items. So once you kind of find a really good base item, maybe it has some greater affixes on it, and then you've tempered on the affixes that you want. You know, hey, you've found the exact affixes that are specific to your build that you've attached onto it. Now you're really pushing into the late game content. It's time to start Masterworking. And Masterworking has 12 ranks where you can upgrade the current affixes on your gear. So this isn't going to change any of the affixes like enchanting or like tempering does. This is just going to take the current ones and then upgrade them through 12 ranks.
This is kind of like the old gear upgrade, right?
Similar, yes. However, both Masterworking and tempering are replacing the old gear upgrade system. The previous system, you just kind of upgraded the item power and the values went up by a bit. These two systems replace that, and now you're going to be able to customize them and then masterwork them
It's
instead.
significantly more powerful on the back end of this as well after these things are done.
we see an example?
Item upgrade, yeah.
Absolutely. So the 12 ranks of Masterworking, as opposed to the 5 of the old system, most of the ranks are going to increase all of your affixes on the gear by a small amount. But then every 4 ranks, so rank 4, 8, and 12, are going to upgrade a single affix by a large amount. So here's an example.
Golem
the ring on the
active
left
cooldown
is
reduction.
Rank 2 Masterworking. You can see that right up there by the item
Okay,
power.
so there's an
It's
example of
Masterworking
a
2 out of
minion,
12.
necro minion.
Let's focus in on like the maximum life
ability.
affix there. So on the left at rank 2, you see we've got 880 bonus maximum life. And so we take it, we masterwork it up to rank 3, and then that will upgrade that to 920 maximum life. So a little bit of an improvement. But then once we hit rank 4, we actually get a much larger increase in maximum life. It goes from 920 all the way up to 1,120, while the other affixes on the gear stay static because they didn't roll randomly because we're only hitting 1. To Joe's point earlier about we still have some in development, this is in development content, it's not final, as the watermark says. The tempered affixes at the bottom, the Golem active cooldown reduction and the Bone critical strike damage, those also would be being upgraded and are eligible to have this this larger bonus.
Okay.
But in this particular screenshot example, those numbers didn't change.
So the
but they will
tempered
change in the
affixes can
final,
get
and there's a
masterwork
chance-
Also
too.
been affected, yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, they will be included just like all of the rest of them. But yeah, so as you go through it, you're going to get kind of 3 of these effects at rank 4, 8, and 12, and they can all go on the same one. So if you get really, really lucky and you really needed a lot of maximum life, you might get just a ton of maximum life every time that increases. Or it could be on one of your tempered affixes. You could get tons of Golem cooldown reduction if that's the kind of build that you're looking for. And once you fully masterworked an item, if it didn't really pan out the way you wanted to, the random rolls didn't quite go your way, you are able to reset it and try it again, but you will kind of lose all the materials that you've invested into it, but you can try that again. It doesn't completely lock you out of it.
Right. So once you've got like,
I mean, that's kind of cool because like then you don't have to find another item all over again to masterwork again.
You want it off it. Maybe you got.
Like you just keep using the same one because you already found everything you wanted
then you take
on
that
it.
item into, assuming you got through all
And
that
you can
process,
just try to
you can
get
take it into the
the exact
feature,
masterwork
and
that
then
you want
you
buffed.
can keep going at it.
Yeah.
Kinda
And get the
cool.
opportunity to kind of hopefully crit exactly the affixes you're looking for.
Yeah, and if you do get that right, you find something that's got critical strike damage, and then you hit all 3 times on it, super upgraded. That's going to be like one of the best items in the game that probably no one else has one exactly like that because you really needed to hit the right one every time. That's going to be a really powerful item that is going to be very memorable when you get all that coming together. I think we've had an example here to really highlight all of these systems taken together. So on before, this was that boned one restoration that we talked about right at the beginning when we talked about paring down the affix list to just more simple intelligence damage and vulnerable damage. And on the right, we can see it after it has been tempered. So we've got Bone Spirit damage. We've got chance for a Bone Splinter projectiles to cast twice.
That's a crazy fucking wand, man.
Intelligence has been highlighted in blue. That means it's had one of the upgrades from Masterworking. And the damage stat on here has been upgraded twice. That's why it's in yellow when we got up to Masterworking 12. And you can see how we've taken this progression, this item progression. So here, once you got it all the way up to Masterworking 12, this is really kind of the pinnacle of what items can be in our new itemization world.
So one thing I want to highlight here is that the total the total depth of what an item can do and the complexity.
I don't like that I'm not seeing a lot of minion stuff, though.
But on that before
seems like they're
side,
still kind of focusing
when you're
on
looking
bone
for items that are
necro.
dropping, that's all that you're going to parse through over there. It's just like 3 affixes. Did I get the ones I want? And you can just do that very quickly and parse through a lot of items that way. But you're going to be slowly, introducing that complexity over time to your items as you upgrade and masterwork them. So you're going to be building the items that you really want to be using.
Absolutely.
In terms of like lucking out on this, I think it's fun to call out like it is basically 5% upgrades to your affixes during the regular masterworking process, and then there's 3 randomly selected 25% upgrades to one of those affixes. So if you're very, very fortunate and you manage to triple up on a particular stat, you can do the math. It's a tremendous, tremendous upgrade for that affix overall.
Yeah.
So basically what I'm hearing
if you want
is
to go hard into one affix, you can
endgame barbarians are going to be even more fucking insanely OP.
Right?
I'm terrified.
Yeah,
Because they're going to have
Handle
4 weapons to do this
Or
with
really hard on
instead of
bonus
just
projectiles, because those are
one.
cool and
Or
flashy.
bonus
projectiles. That's actually true. Yeah.
It's going to be
Got
really
it.
sweet.
Noted.
Bone spears everywhere.
Absolutely. But of course, you might be asking, okay, new items are great. Well, what am I going to do with all of these new items?
Before we even bridge to me, okay, this is a really good bridge. So 2 things I want to call out. One, masterworking works on unique items.
Correct.
Yes.
So some of those really, really cool affixes that can appear on unique items, not the power of the unique item, but a lot of like the really specific unique affixes, those all benefit from the masterworking process as well, which are really significant, right? So I think that there's something really, really fun there. Also, you can make sure that when some of these unique items are dropping, they also can have greater affixes attached to them. So those same unique affixes that we're talking about, that is huge. Now you get an extra 50% value on top of that.
Yeah.
So you get 50% value on top of the unique item affix, and then on top of that you masterwork it. It can get really, really bonkers. So there's a good chase involved in this. But even allowing for player trading and everything else, there's still lots of really exciting stuff for players to find.
Yeah, and the other thing I've seen a little bit of this in chat as well as a lot of people are going hey, when are we actually able to experience this?
PTR.
PTR. Well, first PTR, and also at the same time, this is something that does start immediately with season 4 when it begins.
Yes.
This is all the itemization changes will start with the start of season 4, because I know a lot of people were questioning because they're going well, we had heard Gauntlet in the past, and then Gauntlet actually started mid-season. The itemization changes and all the changes you're hearing today will start at right at the beginning of season 4, which is on May 14th. PTR being on April 2nd. So.
There's a couple other things I also want to say. It doesn't fit
I
neatly.
got one too.
Oh, do you? Oh, no, you go first. You go first.
All right, I want to clarify something because I know it's going to be a lot of questions that people have on greater affixes.
Yes.
So greater affixes, the way that you get them is you can only get them from things that drop. So you're actually looking for that moment when you kill the mob, kill the enemy, the loot drops. That's the exciting moment that we're targeting. Enchanting is still going to exist. You can still enchant your affixes like normal on those 3 ones that drop. You cannot enchant into a greater affix. You can enchant out of a greater affix. So if you choose to, if you've got a 1 greater affix item, you can enchant that greater affix to something else, but it won't change to another greater, and you can't change anything into a greater. It's all about killing monsters, finding that moment that is really exciting when the item drops, seeing if that works for you. So I just wanted to clarify that on how enchanting works and kind of what we're going for.
Yeah, absolutely. Focusing on the drop, the moment of excitement.
Is the moment of excitement that we're going for there.
All right, and then one other thing I want to call out as well that we did talk about already, and that is that there's a lot of other changes that we haven't actually discussed here that you'll see when you get to play in the PTR. But one of them I think is really cool is we actually add a bunch of other new baseline rare affixes that can appear on items that players haven't seen before.
Yes.
So there's as an example of a few of these, we have Fury per second. Can appear on items, which is very, very exciting and very interesting for my barbarian friends.
Transformative.
It's very transformative. There's a number of other ones like life per hit. Is now something that players can find as you're going through the experience. Are there any that you two thought of that are kind of cool, or?
And also ones that are cool and powerful.
Yeah, they're adding some nice crafting stuff.
Weapons almost always had.
You can find stuff with greater affixes.
We've extended that, so a lot of weapons can now have resource cost reduction. They can have bonus attack speed and other things that increase your output through not just saying damage to a certain way. More interesting ways of increasing your output.
Yeah, very cool.
To me, bonus projectiles. That's just the most popular. I'm terrified of it. It's so cool, though. But yeah, it's gonna be
really cool.
Having bonus projectiles drop and then have that potentially be a greater affix when
And
it
then you
goes, and then you masterwork bonus projectiles,
Yeah.
and it gets silly.
Yeah.
I know we want to talk about some end game stuff that's coming to the game. Maybe we leave that for the end of the stream itself, right before we go into Q&A. Is there? I'm going to ask production here. I'm going to pivot them. Is there a way that we can jump to class changes coming to
me next?
Yeah, you next. I'm pivoting.
We got kind of a shrug, so like, I think so.
Yeah, we'll go through the end game stuff here because we do have a lot of additional things that we still need to talk about that even pair with this itemization, these itemization changes. But we'll jump into class changes really quickly.
Sure,
Okay.
we can go to me next. That's fine.
Do it.
What do my minions get to do?
Take us away, Adam.
All right, so are we ready to go? Yeah, okay. So we've got kind of 3 big goals for class updates. We've got a lot going on. I'm going to try and breeze through a little quick in the interest of time. The first one is going through a very high volume of meaningful class updates. And what I mean by meaningful is, not just moving numbers up and down on things that exist, but kind of either updating systems of how things interact at a systemic level, or adding things that are really, really powerful and are actually going to move the needle and change how you interact with the class or the skill or the legendary or whatever we're changing. Next one is making flat damage effects more viable. So by flat damage, I'm talking about things like dust devils, earthquakes, dancing bolts, all these things. I talked a few Campfire chats ago about how I wanted to make these things like a lot more viable and scale better, and we're going to be making good on that in Season 4. I'm excited. We'll go into more details, but yeah, that's one of the big things that's changing this season. And last but not least, opening up designs to be more generally useful. So kind of similar to item affixes, how you've got these like multi-conditional things. We're going through classes across the board and going and looking for ways that we can open up things. So you're going to find that things that were a little more restrictive, we're going to try and interact with more different pieces. So something may have only talked to core skills, now it can be any skill, things like that, where we're trying to make things less conditional so that you can mix and match things a lot more often. So yeah, in addition to those 3 things, those are our goals. I'm also going to be talking a little bit today about PTR balance and hardcore updates. And PSA, everything that you see here right now, the tuning is still in flux. We're going through the balancing process right now of these things. So any exact numbers that you see of updates is very much subject to change, not only before PTR, but of course one of our goals for you playing PTR is helping us with the tuning and balance, because everything is going to be changing. So yeah, expect things to change, but that's kind of where we're at right now. So first, let's talk about uniques. So in Season 4, you're going to get double the normal amount of uniques added to the game. Normally, every class gets 1. Every class is going to be getting 2 this time. So again, more content.
While at full life,
we're also
your skills
adding a
unleash
new
divine
uber unique
barrage.
here, Tyrael's Might. This is a defensive-oriented unique. It's going to be a chess piece. You can see the stats there. Lots of resistance-oriented things and damage reduction. By the way, in this new world, damage reduction is going to be much harder to come by.
Dude, the armor looks cool.
So it's actually a lot more special that it exists here. And the special power of this is that when you're at maximum life, so when you have the entire life bar full, you're going to be shooting out projectiles very similar to the artillery shrine. So you can see here kind of in action.
It is an artillery shrine.
He's attacking and it's not going off, and then as he heals up, you get.
I mean, if you've read the text on artillery shrine, it says you fire divine barrages.
Yeah, class updates. Like I mentioned before, we're really looking to move the needle on these. We are still going to be having a number of changes, quite a few of just things going up and down for tuning. But we're also looking at updating some systems and designs. And I'm going to give you some examples. Now, everything I talk about here today, I'm giving you a small snippet of the things that we're doing, like 1 or 2 examples per class. But when you get the patch notes, you're going to see it's like a giant wall. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing everywhere.
Just a slice of the overall pie.
Yeah. So, some examples here. Skill tag updates. So, we're not only doing this on the sorceress, but on other classes as well. But this is the one example I want to give. One of the pain points that sorceress has always had is
I had to go all the way down to the bottom and read.
Mastery skills.
Holy
mastery
shit.
skills are things like firewall, meteor, things like that. And the mastery skills, we're always kind of second class to the core skills because we had a lot of things that scaled core skill damage, but not mastery skill damage. So we've updated our skill tags and kind of change things around so that they make more sense. So you're going to see more skill tags added to things across the board. And the example here is that mastery skills will also just have the core skill tag. They'll be considered both mastery and core skills. So all your core skill damage bonuses, interactions, all that stuff will just work now. did you have something?
Yeah, just we also talked about like mobility skill tag added to a lot of skills as well, and how that interacts with the tempering system. You have ways of getting mobility skill cooldown reduction that ties into the same concept.
So we're actually adding the mobility skill tag to all things across all classes that have mobility attached to them. So then
and the druid wolves too. Get them, dogs.
And you'll have these things working in tandem together. That's a good point. Yeah, so now some other examples. Frozen Orb on the Sorceress is getting a lot of love.
Yeah, fuck Sorc shit. Can we talk about the Necro
it
stuff?
Go an exact set distance and then blow up, but now it's going to go exactly where you point it at it to with your cursor. So, you're not going to hit your life if you run into like a Suppressor Elite, for example.
I mean, it's Frozen Orb. That's cool, I guess.
Blank or all the way across the screen.
We like
and we'll
Frozen
actually
Orb.
be showing some video of that as well later. We
And
also
a new
have
Frozen Orb
that we're gonna have
unique.
video of.
Nice.
It's really awesome. So Frozen Orb Sorceresses are going to be really happy this season.
Cool.
And next, Necromancer. I've been talking for a while about Necromancer minions and how we're going to make them better.
This shit's going to be crazy, man.
4. The first change is that they're going to inherit 100% of the player's stats.
Thank you.
So, your crit chance, crit damage, all those things, they're just going to inherit it from you. So they're going to scale way better with you, the player. And this is not only going to apply to Necromancer minions, but all minion types in our game. Things like Druid Wolves are also going to be inheriting this and are going to get a pretty big power bump. We're also we took a look at
God damn it, stop being so fucking negative. This is cool.
Basically revamped everything.
Shut up, Goops. Do you see a Bile Titan, Goops?
Are getting
Fuck
some
you.
type of either number or big functionality change, and I'm going to be going through some examples there. But it's just going to be a lot more punchy. We're not only looking for effectiveness here, like making things stronger, but we also like the rule of cool, where the things that are awesome and look cool and are visual are going to stand out more. And so we're trying to do that as much as we can.
Nice. Good.
So next, let's talk about game balance. So as I kind of alluded to earlier, the landscape of everything is changing pretty drastically, right? Itemization is going to be changing a lot of how player power works and how things work in the game. We've got a lot of class updates that are going to be changing how things are. You can expect a pretty big shakeup of like just how all the different classes and builds perform. Like it's going to be a brave new world, really here. But normally we promised a while back that we're going to do lists of everything that's perceived as a nerf. I'm not going to be going through every single thing today. You'll be able to see everything in the patch notes on the PTR, and that's mostly in the interest of time, just because there's so much change that's happening. But I am going to give you, a snippet to do good on that promise of kind of how the game is now, and some things that you can expect that are going to be lowered in power in the future. So some examples here. Generally, Tybalt's Will, everyone's favorite pants, right? And not only is it really good because the effect is good, but also it's damage on pants, which makes it really, really good.
It was too strong. Everybody fucking used it.
Same with Banished Lord's Talesman. Both of these uniques are insanely
That amulet
powerful.
was too fucking good,
they're still
too.
going to be really good after this, but the damage is just being lowered so that other things can be competitive. Next, the Barbarian, everybody's favorite charging class. First thing that we're doing is, many of you may not know this, but when we launched the game, we actually gave them 10% inherent damage reduction.
Never felt like it.
This was back when melee classes in general and the Barbarian were having trouble in the early game. Our game balance has changed radically since then, and we don't feel like they really need this anymore. And we don't want them to have an inherent advantage over all the other classes in the game anymore. So that's going to be removed. And even like I mentioned before when Charles was talking, damage reduction in general is going to be much more rare and special. You're not just going to find it on any defensive stat. Okay. When you see it, it's going to be something that you're going to really value because it's hard to come by. And we also think Barbarians are still going to be really good in this regard because their skill tree has a lot of it. Their skills like Challenging Shout have it. So I think they're going to be fine. But we're just removing.
I don't care. Part. I'm not playing
also,
a bar.
We're reducing the effectiveness of Charge, Hammer of the Ancients, and Unbridled Rage.
Dude, 100% minion stats.
These things have been
we're
incredibly
necro, man.
powerful.
Like what?
Some things
I don't
like
care about
Unbridled
this.
Rage have kind of been stamping out competing things.
This shit needed to be nerfed anyway.
So good. We're not. Our goal here is not to remove these from the game or make these builds not viable at all. They're going to be reduced, but I still think they're going to be really powerful and effective. And next, we're going to go over to the Sorcerer. We got a couple bug fixes here. We have more bug fixes than this, but this is just some that I wanted to call out.
The Sorc is just getting bug fixes?
The first one, we had one where the evade cooldown reduction affix was triggering off of unstable currents casts. And so what this basically meant was you equip those boosts to have evade cooldown reduction, and then you use unstable currents, and you had like infinite uptime on teleport evades, which made you just teleport around forever. This has been fixed, so now it's only going to work with intentional casts now, as it was intended to. And the next one is Isu's Ferocity. This is a key passive on the Sorcerer that used to apply its critical strike damage to all damage types, but it was the fire key passive. Now it's only going to apply to fire damage as it was intended to. And again, this is just a snippet of everything, but there's going to be a lot more stuff. And again, like everything you know is basically going to change because of how many things are being updated in the game. So I wouldn't worry too much about any specific build. All right, so now let's get to the fun part, class updates.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be going through all the different classes here and just showing like 1 to 2 examples of kind of the ideas of things that we're changing. Again, lots more than what you're going to see, but kind of giving you an idea of what to expect in the direction that we're going here.
Okay.
So first we'll start with the Barbarians. So I like Dust Devils. I've liked them for a long time, and not just things like Dust Devils, but all those types of extra affixes that spawn things. So here's an example of Wind Slasher. This is a legendary that we updated. So it's the double swing legendary that spawns Dust Devils. Before it was you would cast double swing twice and you like go in and out and in and out, and every other time you'd make a Dust Devil, right? Pretty cool. We're updating this now, so every single time that you cast double swing, it does a Dust Devil. And instead of every other time spawning 1, every other time spawns 3. So now, instead of going hit, then 1, then hit, then 1, it's 1, then 3, then 1, then 3, which means a lot more Dust Devils.
And I want to call it again, there's tempered affixes that give you chances to spawn additional Dust Devils when you spawn a Dust Devil. So,
and affixes that talk to them directly in itemization with tempering, like their size can go up, their damage can go up. Like we're actually going to make this a thing.
I know I'm talking a lot about Dust Devils. There's cool stuff for all of
Dust
them.
Devil bars.
I played a lot of Dust Devil bar during one season. So,
It's the example I tell our team. It's like always I say Earthquakes and Dust Devils. These things are going to be cool. And all the ones like that go across the other classes. Anyways, that's the Bard. So there's not just this, lots of other legendaries are like this. Druid, for example, a thing that has been long complained about to me is that lacerate isn't up to par to other things. So there on the left is what you can see exists today, where the upgrades for lacerate are, the first one is you heal for a little bit for every hit, and then it's doubled when you crit. And then the next upgrade is that its initial strike crits and does a little bit more damage. We're just merging those together. So both of those combined is going to be your first lacerate upgrade. And now we added a second upgrade there, where every time that lacerate crits, all of your shape-shifting skills are going to deal more damage for 10 seconds, up to 40%. So now we're adding a very strong, potent, multiplicative damage bonus buff after lacerate. So now, lacerate, it's going to give you invulnerability, life leech, crit, and then a potent damage buff for a while after you cast it. So then if you can get cooldown reduction on it, you can keep that buff rolling and actually have like a build going on. Next, the Sorceress. So here, instead of just text, I'm actually going to show you some videos. The first one is going to be showing that Frozen Orb change that we talked about.
Yeah, Frozen Orb.
Here, so basically you can see here that where the person is targeting with their cursor is where the Frozen Orb is going to explode.
Is that not how it worked before?
So now you can make it point blank, you can make it far away.
Is that really not how it worked before?
It's going to be wherever you go. And for you controller players, this is going to interact just like other skills where it just goes to an enemy, and then if there's nothing nearby, it just goes a set distance before.
What did it do before?
Next, we're going to be talking
shoot forward no matter what?
So prefacing this unique a little bit before we show the video, the basic idea is conjurations are cool and Frozen Orb is cool.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen with this unique is Frozen Orb is going to have a chance when it explodes to spawn conjurations, and then anytime that your conjurations attack, they have a chance to throw Frozen Orbs at enemies. So now we're going to see this in action here.
What?
So it's called Fractured Winter Glass, and this video is just the person casting Frozen Orb with this unique. So at first it's like, okay, it's fine. You see a couple conjurations, right? And then as you go on, you can see that the Frozen Orbs are making more of them, and then the conjurations are also throwing out more Frozen Orbs.
Okay.
This is all just from pressing one button.
This is all just from throwing out Frozen Orbs.
Just been right-clicking this whole time.
Yeah, so it's like when I place a firewall, and my firewall makes a meteor, and then my meteor makes a firewall.
Yes, but conjurations.
But conjurations,
So
yeah.
Hydra throwing Frozen Orbs.
Firewall meteor
exactly.
sounds cool too.
Yeah.
Now
Hydra's not terrible.
Focused.
But yeah, so this is an example of
Hydra.
the cool uniques that we're adding to the game. Next, let's move on to the Rogue. So we're also updating some class mechanics and other things. Inner Sight has kind of been eclipsed by other things in our game, right? When we first made
me
Inner
up when
Sight,
Rogue is over.
It triggered off of trying to, this idea that you were going to target a single enemy, pick on that enemy, and build up this gauge, and then you have unlimited energy, and unlimited energy was supposed to be this really crazy, rare thing that was not going to happen very often. It turned out that's not really the case through itemization and other things. You can kind of solve resource a lot easier nowadays.
Yeah, it's fun to do that too.
Yeah, and it's fun. We want people to do that. So we have to update our other systems in accordance to that, which is kind of what we're doing
I thought
here.
Sork was fun already.
You don't only have to hit the mark
And
enemy, but
that's saying something. Like if I'm saying I thought Sork was fun,
waves of enemies, you still want to make sure you're hitting the one that's targeted, but now you'll get a little bit of gauge off of any enemy that you hit. And now in addition
the
to
meteor
that,
build like this season was a lot of
going
fun.
to get that unlimited energy still, but you're also going to get a 25% crit chance boost. So now you're going to be hitting harder when you are in inner sight mode. So now there's actually a damage component there too, in addition to the unlimited energy. Next, Necromancer. So like I said, Book of the Dead is getting upgrades. I kind of picked one slice from each part, from each minion type. So here you can see your Skeletal Reapers, the wind-up attacks now, can reduce one of your active cooldowns by a pretty chunky amount. 3 seconds is insane.
Old Mage attacks apply vulnerable for 4 seconds.
Next one for the mages, one of their upgrades used to be that they've made frozen enemies vulnerable, and now they just make everything vulnerable. So actually, if you want cold mages to solve vulnerable for you, you pretty much
The problem with this Reaper change is no one's going to use that instead of the one that makes the corpses.
Iron Golem, now that when you tell it to go somewhere and do that slam attack where it pounds the ground, it'll also pull in enemies, very similar to Corpse Tendrils. So it's not as required, to put that on your bar. You have another way to kind of get that effect. Another thing I didn't put on the slide that I want to call out with Golems that'll make players happy. Golem now, while you're CC'd or at any time, when you activate it, it's going to make both your Golem and you unstoppable. Ooh. So now you have another source of unstoppable in the Necromancer for minion builds, which I think will make players really happy.
Yeah, nice. It's a buddy cop situation.
You and your buddies going and taking people out.
That's right, I love it. Yeah.
That's awesome for a Golemancer build for sure.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a Golemancer.
So next,
Shut up.
like I was saying before, flat damage effects, Dust Devils, and Earthquakes are going to be your friends now. So before, these legendaries did not scale very well. And what I mean by that is that the damage that they did was fixed. So if you got like a Dust Devil or Earthquake or whatever, you got that legendary at like level 25, the damage that it did was just a number, and that number didn't really go up with you or scale with you in a meaningful way. Now, under the hood, all of these things are going to be scaling based off your weapon damage, which means that these things will scale with you as a player and be much more viable now. And I believe can zoom in on this example I give. So this one is Dancing Bolts. I'm actually running this legendary right now, my Lightning Storm Druid. So you can see that, it's the same legendary on each side. This is me just changing out my weapon while I have this legendary equipped. This is in Season 4, so you can see it does an amount of damage on the left, about 5,400 there. Now that number on the right, I didn't get a new legendary, I didn't change it, I didn't do anything except change my weapon, and that increased the damage that these Dancing Bolts are going to do. So when you get these legendaries now, they're going to scale with you and do quite a bit more damage and be punchy as you go into the late game. This is in addition to like tempering and other things, talking to these things, so you can actually itemize into making them more powerful as well.
And it's funny because there's some people I think that didn't catch, maybe they didn't catch the first part of the itemization, but they're looking at this second legendary, the new one, and they're going like, wow, it's only got 3 stats or something. You should probably watch a recording of this.
Yeah, that's when it drops, not after you've done all your stuff.
Exactly. There's a lot of itemization changes to make the items feel more valuable themselves in Season 4. So I recommend watching the recording just for people that may have missed the itemization or checking out our blog next week.
You can tap 2 more affixes on them. There you go.
Yeah, they got 5.
That's right.
All right, so last but not least is opening up designs. Like I talked about, one of our goals here, make things more generally useful, less restrictions. We can zoom in here. I have 2 examples. One is Azurath here on the left, a unique sword. So 2 things going on here. First, you can see before, it was that your core skills have a chance to freeze enemies and deal a bunch of damage to them. On the right, we've removed the core skill requirement, and now any of your skills can have a chance to freeze enemies. So this means you can use it on like charge and other similar things like that, where, maybe you want to make a build around something that's not a core skill to proc this, you totally can.
Everything's looking pretty good.
You just play normally. Second thing you'll notice is on the left, it says Barbarian only. We just removed that restriction. So now any class that can use a sword can use Azurath. Again, we're just trying to look for places where there was restrictions, and when we can, we're just removing them.
Can Sorks use swords?
This one is Opportunist. This one I'm really excited about on the Rogue. I think I'm going to play a Rogue this season. So on the left is the old version, where it says when you break stealth with an attack, you can drop stun grenades, right? And then those grenades deal damage and stun enemies. On the right, we've removed a lot of these restrictions and made it more useful. So now it's when you enter or break stealth, and you don't need to break stealth when you attack. So anytime that you cast stealth or go into stealth, you're going to get 2 sets of these, and it's just going to be when you go in and out.
Of course, but
you also notice that this is a tuning thing.
The only class in the game that can use a shield is Necromancer.
And then we also did a thing that I'm really excited about here, where every single stun grenade legendary will increase the damage of your grenade skills, and all of them are going to have this. So if you want to make a stun grenade build, if you collect, the 4 or 5 of these legendaries that kind of combo together, every one is going to incrementally increase your grenade's damage as well, to a point where you will be doing a lot more meaningful damage in your build. All right, last but not least, we've got hardcore updates. So for you hardcore players, Elixir of Death Evasion is being removed from the game. It's dying, and it's not coming back, just like you will in hardcore.
Wow.
We've also redesigned the Flame Shield enchantment. So before, it used to be a cheat death mechanic, where when you took fatal damage, it would, proc and save you. Now it's going to automatically activate when you lose a certain amount of life, and then it has an internal cooldown on that. So we've heard from the community.
So you mean hardcore is actually going to be hardcore and not,
so we're going to deliver on
not
that
Elixir of Death Evasion cooldown?
The Sanctuary is a very scary place, and you won't have those fail safes to keep you alive anymore. And finally, PTR feedback. So like we mentioned before, we're going to be looking at the PTR feedback very carefully. Please let us know what you think. The class team is particularly excited about what's working for you and what's not working for you.
Not that I really give a shit about hardcore, but
you're kind of tuning your
for the
feedback
people
and
that
typing
do,
it to us, we're really looking at things like tuning and balance. We know that things are going to be pretty wacky in this brave new world that we're going into. We're also looking for what changes really made the game more fun to you. You're going to see a lot of them, a lot more than what I presented today. We really want to know what changes we did maybe didn't hit the mark and why. Maybe we didn't go far enough, or this thing could have been way better with just a small tweak. And then last but not least, we want to know what would you like to see that didn't make it in, right? We're forever going to be updating this game, and we really want to know, a lot of these changes are coming from your feedback, like, flat damage scaling, unstoppable coming on the golem for necromancers who've been wanting more sources of it. What other things are you seeing that, have always kind of bugged you or have always been kind of a pain point that you would like us to change? And we'll be looking for that feedback. So yeah, that's pretty much everything we got for classes. Thanks everybody again.
Yes,
so excited.
There is like ton of information for classes, and it's funny because everyone's treating this PTR feedback slide as if we're done.
No.
Right?
There's more. There's a lot more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
He hasn't even gotten started yet.
As the chat calls it, Joe Pipe or Rap God has not spoken yet. So he will be talking here now about endgame.
Oh shit!
Specific items.
What are we gonna do?
So a couple things I want to talk about first. We're going to talk about some new content stuff in just a minute, but there are some other things that are also changing at the same time. You'll see on the PTR, we've made adjustments to world tiers, in that we've changed the XP modifier that you get for opting into certain world tiers. So, so the reason why we're doing this, we want to get players to endgame a little bit faster. So we've made an adjustment where World Tier 2 now goes, instead of giving you 20% bonus XP, it gives you 50% bonus XP. Yep. World Tier 3 now gives you 150% bonus XP as opposed to the 100% you got before. And then World Tier 4 gives you 250% bonus XP instead of the 200% that you got before. So again, we want to get players into the space where
dads out there with 10 kids and 5 wives can get to level 100.
We talk about in just a minute. And experience more of the end game, and have a little less emphasis on the level up process being like a lot longer as it is today. So this is our stated intent. We want more players to be able to reach level 100. We want them to get more of these level 109 925 items. We want them to start seeing more greater affixes. We want them to engage in tempering and masterworking. And we want them to see everything else the game has to offer. We want to make sure that we're removing some of the restrictions and making that possible. And we're continuing to think about that as we move forward. This is just all of the things we're talking about today are just one more step on the journey of Diablo 4. We're going to continue, as Adam already called out, to continue to make the game better based on feedback and just continue to add more cool stuff that we think is great for the game, and that also that we're hearing from our player base, our community, would be really, really great.
I mean, again, everything that I've heard
with that quick little thing
today
out of the way, let's go ahead and
sounds
jump into
really
the first
fucking
major
good.
update we have planned.
Aside from pushing the season back
on PTR. Okay. And that is, we made a significant update to Helltide.
Oh, wow.
Now, I think that everyone will remember that in Season 3, we made an adjustment to Helltide timing, where now they're basically up for 55 minutes out of every hour. There's a 5-minute gap between each Helltide.
This was my idea.
And we think that that's great. Players are able to get better access.
The thing at the bottom, that was my idea.
And all the gameplay there. But we also, looking back on Season 2 and the Blood Harvest regions where the armies of Lord Zir were marching across sanctuaries. We all recall from quarter 4 of last year, and capturing people and draining them of blood. That was a really fun, frenetic, social experience. The overworld, it's just a blast. Kind of go through, kill vampires, save people, and summon bloodseekers as well along the way, and getting good rewards as you go. It was a fun experience. In Season 3, we had a different take on that idea with the form of Arcane Tremors, where players can go and engage in a number of different small activities and traps, and also manage to summon Heralds of Malthus in a group and go ahead and get more like tuning stones and more and governing stones and continue to like just get more rewards from that experience. And again, we thought that was pretty fun, right? So we wanted to take some
you'd be able to do Helltides just right off the rip.
I'll be actually, I think it might be even easier if we could just throw to Ruben potentially, who I think might actually be able to be in Helltide right now.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Looks like that's the case. So we want to take some of these ideas back to Helltide. Hello, yes, you're going to get destroyed. Yeah, we want to take some of these ideas back to Helltide and make sure that our overworld, exciting, demonic invasion experience.
Oh, you guys can't see it because now my fucking cam's in the way again.
It's just more fun to engage with.
Was that just a giant hellworm belching a bunch of enemies at?
That was.
So he has a little meter like up by the mini map.
So a bunch of things have changed. So one of the things that let me dive in. So one of the things that we did is we add this new idea of a threat system. Now you'll see the eagle-eyed among you can look to the left of the mini map. Thank you, Ruben. Can look to the left of the mini map, and you'll see a horizontal bar segmented in 3 pieces next to that kind of like half-completed pentagram there. As the players are killing demons in Helltide areas, they are slowly growing their threat over the course of the experience. And as they do that, they're going to find like more like ambushes. They're going to find more creatures coming and trying to kill them as they kind of like roll through the space. And they're gaining threat by doing anything. If they're opening tortured gifts, if they are killing like regular monsters and elites, they're always earning more threat for the things that they do. The armies of hell are paying more attention. So as the player is going to go through this process, they are going to start feeling like more pressure as they go through the experience. Now,
dude, what's that icon on the
map? Once the player
map?
has gotten towards the end of this, like they actually have, when the armies of hell have been fully alerted, you'll hear a tone, which I think that I think we might actually hear soon potentially. I guess we'll have to see. But you'll hear a tone alerting you to the fact that the armies of hell are basically coming for your blood, right? They're coming for you at this time. And in that case, you're going to see that there's going to be a new creature type that's going to appear, which we'll be able to get to in just a second.
Come on, Ruben.
Big changes that are happening in Helltide alongside this, while we kind of wait for some of this stuff to happen, is we have reduced the level requirement or the world tier requirement for Helltides. You'll start to see them in lower world tiers now, so they're a great way for you to level up. Okay, it looks like the forces of hell have been alerted. So now there's going to be like it's going to be almost a little more of a holdout. More invasions and ambushes are going to start to occur at this time, and it's going to have a kind of cap-off event towards the end. We'll talk about as it arrives. But you can see right now that threat is draining while this event is occurring. So you've kind of like reached that maximum threshold. The minions of hell are coming for you. You're going to be kind of fighting pretty hard for this stuff. But it's a great way to get like access to a lot of elites. Once this bar is drained once again, you can start building it up by, again, going out, doing more things inside the Helltide experience. You're going to get more opportunities for more cinders and more of these ambushes again as time goes on. Looks like we're getting towards the end of this now. Oh yeah.
I like that you'll be able to just
this Hellborn here.
Yeah. So yes, and now
like you make a new character and then just immediately just start like doing shit like this.
Very much a similar creature to some of the
pretty cool
Bloodseekers that we've seen in the past. These are adventurers who have fallen to the depravities of hell. They're now serving their infernal masters. They have great drops, like they'll drop like legendary equipment, and they will also drop summoning materials for Lord Zir moving forward. So there's more ways for you to get some of those mats as you go through the experience.
Okay, I guess.
And that's actually one of the other things that we did as part of our general updates is we kind of wanted to go through and do a pass to make it easier to find more of those boss summoning materials, like from doing like different kinds of content. So while obviously you can go to Helltides and open tortured gifts to get living steel pretty quickly, we want to make sure that there's like, if you find like a treasure goblin, there's a chance now that treasure goblin could drop a random boss summoning material. When you go and you open bounty caches or whisper caches at the end of a bunch of whispers runs, like in that situation, you'll also get a chance to get a random boss summoning material. And we find more opportunities through different parts of the experience in like local events. Like when you're going and just finding events and you manage to complete the mastery objective of an event now, there's a chance for you to get a boss summoning material there. Even elites have a very, very low chance to drop some of these materials. And again, all to make it just a little bit easier to kind of like gain access to these bosses as you're leveling up and playing, even if you're not saying specifically in just Nightmare Dungeons to get Distilled Fear or something else, right?
More Uber Durger runs.
I think those are going to be some pretty fun updates for the players. That's obviously
pretty
not
exciting.
Everything.
Yeah.
So so another thing that we're doing as part of this is that we are adding a new boss.
New boss.
We're adding
it's Andariel.
So you can now fight Andariel. She is summoned by defeating the Beast in Ice and Lord Zir. And she's got the same drop table as Duriel.
Okay.
So we want to make sure that players have a couple different ways to kind of gain access to these really, really powerful uniques that Duriel drops, but also for that shot at getting those uber uniques without always requiring players to go back to those same places. So between opening up the options of how you gain access to materials you can use to go farm uber uniques a little bit earlier,
more Duriel runs, more Andariel runs.
Dungeons, go do some of this overworld content to gain access to Beast and Ice and Lord Zir, so you can go farm Andariel there. We think that's gonna be like a really, really fun change. And Andariel is a really cool fight. I think we might actually have like a quick little shot of the summoning for Andariel.
All right.
As we all know her and love her.
Okay.
Wow. She's back. She's tough. You know,
one of her titties is on fire.
I want to say the fight's been updated too. It's not exactly the same as what you did before.
Yeah, the designer's been very excited about this fight. Very excited about Andariel for a while.
What does she do?
Into the equation.
She drops circles on the ground.
She's gonna be a lot of fun to summon.
Does a poison nova?
Class.
Yeah. Okay, enough Andariel. Enough Andariel.
All right, yeah.
People we're on a timer, people. Okay, I got things to talk about still. Okay, but that's not even all the things that we're changing with regards to bosses. There's more stuff that we're doing as well. So one of the things that we're going to be talking about in just a minute is a new feature called the Pit. And inside the Pit, you're going to be earning Stygian stones you'll be able to use to summon higher level versions of all of these bosses as you go deeper into the experience. So we think this is extremely exciting. It provides another way for players to be able to express their
uber bosses,
strength, and going and fighting these bosses are going to provide much greater rewards. In fact, when you kill one of these new, very, very powerful, tormented versions of these bosses out there, they are going to give you one resplendent spark the first time you kill any of them. So of like all the ones that you can summon, the first time you kill one of them, you're going to get a resplendent spark for you to use in the future. Now, and that is not all that we're doing. Obviously, I mentioned the Pit. So if we could just go ahead and well, I guess we can talk about it. I can speak to it actually. Yeah. So we've been getting a lot of feedback from like our experience with the Abattoir of Zir. You know, so towards the end of season 2, we had this like really difficult like dungeon dive. We were going against again forces of Lord Zir inside this experience and fighting Bloodseekers and kind of racing the clock. And that was a pretty fun experience. We got a lot of really good information and feedback about how that really played out. We made a number of adjustments in the form of this new content type that we're calling the Artificer's Pit. And what it effectively is a way for players to go and
we get to see anything
once players have managed to complete a tier 45 nightmare dungeon, which is filled with like level 100 monsters. They're going to gain access to a quest that's going to like send them around the world looking for rune shards. And rune shards are just this new material that players will collect to open up Artificer's Rifts. And they drop from elite creatures. They drop all over the place. Like it's pretty easy to find, you know, the materials you'll need to start this process. And when you have a number of them, you can bring them back to this obelisk in Karagar and kind of use that to like form your first pit run effectively. And there's hundreds of levels of this, and the monsters that you will begin fighting immediately are all like right at level 100.
Oh, it's a greater rift.
Do we have
we have a video of it?
That's actually a greater rift.
So we have Ruben like kind of near
live,
there.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, we have the live play
with that awesome debug text.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, with the awesome debug text. Everybody, it's PTR. Look forward, and we're talking about dev stuff right now. This is what it looks like sometimes. So okay, so we see here that
it's literally greater rifts.
Before. He's going to go ahead and just open up a tier 1 Artificer's Rift.
Okay.
And we'll see how this goes. So he's going to spend 1 rune shard to do this. That's going to open up right here in Karagar.
All right.
And we're going to go. There's a little bit of a stacking issue there. Yeah, we're going to have that fixed too. Again, sends that feedback, everybody. And you're going to dive into your first pit run. Now, each pit experience it's a randomized layout filled with random monsters. You know, there's no nightmare affixes like what we have in, or like afflictions like we have in Nightmare Dungeons. Instead,
where's the Tomb Lord?
Just pushing themselves up as against this timer as fast as they can, trying to complete it. So as you're going through this, you'll see it's very similar to a lot of the things that we did in the Abattoir of Zir.
Nice.
Now we want to make sure that this is a quick, punchy experience as you're playing and you're killing monsters.
God, just
you're not going to get any loot from the drops. Like just say it's
fucking riffs from Diablo 3.
Pushing as hard as you can.
It's the exact same thing.
A couple of the major differences between what we've done in the Artificer's Pit relative to what we did in the Abattoir of Zir is first, in the Abattoir of Zir, when a player died while going through the experience, they were immediately ejected from the Abattoir of Zir. Like their run was over in the case of death. Here, we want to allow for a little bit more, a few more problems to occur, a few more errors, from the player as they're kind of going through. So that every time you die, what actually ends up happening is you add 30 seconds to your timer. So you're less and less likely to beat the timer.
Dude, I can't
And
believe
that's important. At the end of the timer, you're not ejected.
I say I
from the
can't
pit
believe it,
if you
but
don't actually manage to keep time with the timer. You just don't get the mastery objective completion. And the mastery is tied to masterworking materials that you'll be using.
Like all the crafting stuff, like really cool. The itemization stuff, really cool.
Earlier, is the
everything that they talked about sounds great.
The bulk majority of
but then, I mean,
materials.
this is
so while you can get to the end
this is Rifts from Diablo 3. That is exactly what this is.
By the end of a pit run, if you don't manage to finish with the time,
I don't know why
you won't get access to those materials.
They could just acknowledge
it. So why
it.
is this? So
like literally just be like, oh, you guys remember Rifts from Diablo 3? We heard you guys really liked those, so we decided to add them to this game too.
A lot of times,
like that's what it is.
Efficiency bets about how they choose to engage with content.
Now, what I want to know is, why am I doing these?
Fairly easily and without much risk.
Like, why am I doing these?
How much further beyond this level can I push?
What do I get from this?
Maximize the rewards I'm getting from the runs that I'm doing, and while also like maintaining good cadence and like managing my risk. And that's kind of like that fun sweet spot that we think works really, really well. AOZ was meant to like tap into a little bit of this we want, but it was also AOZ was designed to be an extraordinarily challenging piece of content from the get-go. Here, the pit starts in a somewhat more reasonable place.
Oh, is that what it is?
We understand that like tier 45 Nightmare Dungeons are not the most challenging content in the entirety of the game. It goes up much higher than that, and the pit does as well.
Oh yeah,
the pit
I guess.
Can go like well past tier 100.
Why is it called the pit?
Level 200 monsters, level 250 monsters.
You're not like, why is it called the pit?
Experience. So, okay, it looks like Ruben's making pretty good time going through this. I think we saw earlier that Ruben actually like jumped into a portal to move to a different area.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't finish an entire pit run inside like that first area. You kind of are expected to like move on, but you also don't need to kill everything in either of these areas.
They want to call it a rift.
Good amount of creatures in both spaces.
I mean,
kind of, like make up the time that you need.
Joe actually like said rift.
Okay.
A couple times.
The idea is to try and find that level in the pit where you can go pretty efficiently and quickly, but where you're pushing hard so you can get better rewards. Right.
Okay.
So
you did a great job, Ruben.
Then you get a portal to go to the Guardian's lair.
Okay, let's not get too excited. All right. So now he's gonna go and he's gonna fight the boss in just a moment.
He's gonna fight Tomb Lord.
The second thing that's different about the pit that we.
Okay. I was like, he's just gonna go fight Tomb Lord. Let's be honest.
Done in AOZ.
But no, it's just another.
Occasionally during a
just
pit
another
run,
normal dungeon boss.
By another major boss or villain that you've seen. Like, you'll see their echo occasionally appear just for a moment to perform a big attack, big sweeping attack, or that you're going to have to like avoid or deal with while you're dealing with the boss you're already fighting. And this is happening throughout the duration of the pit as well. And as you go deeper, you'll see this occasionally a little more frequently at the same time. So these are just another complication, like another thing that you're going to have to be thinking about while you're playing and trying to like remember the sorts of patterns. Eventually, you'll see a couple of these appearing as well. So like you'll be dealing with that like that kind of pattern following as you play deeper and deeper into the pit.
Yeah,
I'll
so
say
it's kind of like Elias, for instance, like a shade of Elias can
you can come and do an attack,
just do an attack in the middle.
A shade of Lilith can appear as well.
A shade of Lilith can also appear, which is pretty cool.
These are definitely tough things as you go deeper and deeper, and eventually you might see a couple of them as well in combination. So here Ruben killed the boss, got a number of different drops. There's a bug in this version that we're looking at right now where the items they're dropping are not actually ancestral, but that's not the case when players will be playing on the PTR.
Obdicite.
Items as the rewards for killing the boss.
The fuck is Obdicite?
And then after that, when you open the chest, you're going to see that there's a bunch of Obdicite that popped out of it, which is a masterworking material. I think he got 5, from the first run. So as you go deeper in the pit, there's basically
so I have to do these to masterwork my equipment.
You're going to be able to earn through.
Noted.
So there's the Obdicite, there's the Ingolith, and then there is the Neath Iron. So these are available as you go deeper and deeper into the pit experience. I think Obdicite right now is like tiers 1 to 20. You'll be getting like amounts of Obdicite. As you go from like 21 to 40, you get amounts of Ingolith, and as you go to Neath Iron and beyond, as you go into like 40 and beyond, you start seeing more and more Neath Iron. And these things can also be like condensed down to lower level materials if you need them for resetting a masterwork item and starting at a lower level.
So you don't have to go back to the low level.
No,
you can stay at the high.
You can stay at a higher level.
Yeah.
But to be clear, if you want to get to that rank 12 masterworking, the best possible items, you do need to be pushing deeper levels of the pit. You can't just continually farm level 1. You want to push to that efficiency bet that you said. Push yourself to your limit to get the most materials per hour, and just really
hit that grind, boys,
to get the best items.
That's correct. So yeah, if you want to go through that process,
grind your dick off,
the best items available for your build, you're going to want to go through the masterworking process, maybe even probably more than once, almost certainly more than once, right? To get the absolute very, very best items. So we think the pit's gonna be. It's a really fun experience. It is. It's
why they call it the pit.
It goes pretty deep for players.
Get back down there in the pit and start working.
Stygian stones as you play. Like as you get deeper into the experience, you're gonna get those. You're gonna get the ability to go fight those level 200 tormented versions of these bosses. So like a level 200 tormented version of Barshan, and so on and so forth.
Can you do a level 200 version of Duriel and Andariel?
A higher chance to drop uber unique item as well. So now there's even more reason to want to go get some of these creatures on farm, and they have better drops. They more prolific in terms of the drops. They drop many more items as you're going through this. So these are going to be huge challenges for players to go and try to chase. Again, just in season 4. So that's like the current look at some of the things we're working on right now.
Yep.
That we're currently very excited about.
Yeah. So
on the content side. Right?
Yeah. We're an hour and a half in of all the content that we just walked through with season 4, and as Adam had mentioned earlier, we haven't even gone through all the class updates. You guys will actually see that. There's a lot more. You guys will actually see that next week. Normally we do have a blog and patch notes kind of available like a day or two after a campfire chat. I am asking the community if it's okay if we give it to you guys next week.
So we're getting patch notes next week.
Why is that they're huge, and we actually need to make sure that we.
We're not getting the season until May now, though.
The PTR actually starts, and we will actually.
But I guess it'd be nice to know the patch notes before we do the PTR.
The details of this actual campfire chat, as well as the giant list of patch notes for the PTR, which again will begin on April 2nd, run for a week. On PC Battle.net, and we'll have instructions of how to actually get into the PTR, download the client, and everything from that end as well. So I know we always end our campfire chats with a Q&A session.
Yep.
So we do want to make sure that we do a Q&A session right now. So if you guys have questions, please use Twitch chat.
I can't imagine there's any questions.
So. We covered everything, right?
I thought it was a perfect explanation.
We did ask earlier this week on the forums if anyone had any specific questions, and so we can actually tee up a question while people are populating.
When are we getting loadouts? That's going to be a question.
So we'll start off with one that we have here from the forums. This is from Iggy. What will happen to current items after this rework? Because obviously we're now changing a lot of things from our past items going into season 4.
Yeah, so all of the items that you currently have on your characters or on the Eternal Realm will be flagged as what are called legacy items. And this means that they are not able to interact with the new systems of tempering or masterworking. They'll continue to function as they are, so that they're not going to break, they're not going to be re-rolled or changed in any way. They're just kind of say, hey, this was an item that in the old system, but if you want to engage with the new systems and find those greater affixes and temper all the cool new affixes onto it and do masterworking, of course, you're going to need to go out and find new items.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is a question from Toast and Pen, Eternal Realm, what's new? Everything we just talked about. Everything we just talked about, Toast and Pen, is going to be available in the Eternal Realm. So, and this will start with season 4. So if you are a person that just only plays on Eternal Realm,
Eternal Realm
there, of course, you can just immediately start engaging in everything that we just kind of talked about right here. J Corsair 19, does the masterworking just increase the total range of the roll, or does it get you closer to a max roll?
So it increases the current value. So if you already had a max roll, it keeps on increasing. So as an example, you had an affix that could have rolled between 50 and 100, and you had a value of 90. Every time you increase it, it's going to increase that 90 by, or let's say you had it at 100, just to make the math easier, because quick math. If it was already at 100, the first masterworking upgrade will take it to 105. Even though the base roll range was just up to 100, you can continue progressing past that. If you had it, down at 50, it would go from 50 up to 55, and so on.
Arrow 1357 just asked, like, what about season? Like, is there season stuff as well? We actually aren't talking yet about the season items. So yes, this is all part of the season and part of the Eternal Realm. But we do have there are some things that we haven't talked about regarding season 4 that we will be talking about here in the future.
The bulk effort for the team has really been spent on trying to ensure that this update is really meaty and all inclusive. Like when I've talked before about the season 2 updates where we talk about like vulnerability damage and the many changes we had to make to kind of like get that into a better spot for the players overall. You can see like the amount of things that we did are kind of all connected in a lot of ways. And it's important they kind of come out together. It's difficult to do one thing in isolation. So a lot of teams worked together to kind of like bring this update and get over the finish line. So yeah, it's a huge lift. But there's more things to talk about later on, for the season.
Thorag the Warrior says, can multiple affixes increase per masterwork or only one affix per masterwork?
They said that.
Right. So when you're masterworking, most of the ranks
They
will
said
increase
they
all
said
of the
that when they
affixes on the gear
explained the
by a
process.
small amount. But when you hit those thresholds, the rank 4, rank 8, and rank 12, a single random affix will get a much larger boost.
Yeah.
And so because there's that happens 3 times on your journey from rank 1 to 12. In theory, all 3 of those could land on the same affix if you get lucky, and then that one affix just goes through the roof. Or it could be spread out to 3 different affixes, for instance. That's just the nature of masterworking.
Other than the fact they pushed the start of the next season back, everything they've been talking about sounds great.
I've seen a lot of people actually mention this in chat, and Riker also just mentioned this in chat.
Sure.
And they're asking, is it just me, or was the camera more zoomed out in the dev build? Actually.
Oh, we didn't even talk about that.
Actually,
What?
Okay. Go ahead.
In season 4, the camera will be more zoomed out.
Whoa.
And there will be an option. You can have what we had before, or you can zoom it out a little. So yes.
Yeah, there's a gameplay setting. It starts at the current default.
Correct.
Which is what we have in Diablo 4 today. But we've been hearing the feedback.
We can see more stuff.
We did make a move. Joe Shelley helped a lot with this, actually. Everybody helped a lot with this. We did make a move to like pull the camera out a little bit further. That's part of like a near-far sort of like situation. So it's going to be available for you to see in the PTR.
Good eye.
Good eye.
Huge update, yes, of course.
Yeah, and we forgot to say, that's another really good one to talk about.
Yeah.
Thanks, chat.
There are a lot of questions about loadouts. Did you guys want to provide any context on that?
Yeah, so we've talked about this before. We're very, very excited about bringing in like an armory-like feature to Diablo 4. We've been hearing the feedback since like the Gauntlet went up, which we're very excited about, and we see that there's an opportunity here. We don't have anything to announce today, but it is a thing the team has talked about. Like the UI team is very excited about. It's a thing we definitely want to move on at some point, but nothing to announce.
That one, I lost my track here. Do you have any intention of reviewing? I'm sorry, this is from Vix311 or 3II. Do you have any intention of reviewing class optimization? Examples like give more customization points or put Paragon after a higher level than 50?
So there's a number of things that we're talking about for the future. Things we can't talk about today. But you can imagine that like we're going to be having.
It's on Q&A, Rosie. It's almost done.
Stuff then. There's things for us to be considering.
A lot of people mentioning a loot filter.
Yeah.
Which I know, like we had mentioned as well, that we wanted to get through the itemization stuff. So
sure, I can talk a little bit about that. I think a lot of the desire for a loot filter in the current version of Diablo 4 stems from the problems that we initially mentioned with we really do just flood you with items, and it's like sifting sand, right? You need to look through all these items, and the one response is, hey, a loot filter could automate all this. We think in this new itemization world where we are simplifying it in a lot of the ways that we already discussed, reduced number of affixes, simpler affixes, the item power once you get to the late game always dropping at the max, will help to alleviate a lot of those concerns, and it will make parsing through the items a lot easier in this new system.
Lady Ava 2016 mentioned, or actually brings up something that I think we should talk about, which is, would it be possible to toss a different icon on the map when specific like greater affixes and things like that drop? Are there any plans for that in regards to changing some of that around?
We really want to get feedback from players as you go through the PTR experience. Even the
look, man, they don't want to add a loot filter. Get over it already. They don't want to add it.
That's going through a bit of revision before it actually.
They're trying to make it so you feel like you don't need one.
The 1.4 release moment. So like,
are people still going to want it?
Like, I think that it would be good to get.
But they don't want to add one.
And it's something we'll continue to think about because we do want those moments to be exciting when they actually occur. Yeah.
Brayan C22, you say higher the rifts, the better the items. Are we talking about the equivalent of primals?
So
and if people don't know, primals being a D3 specific item that was super powerful.
So as you go, we're not changing the rate at which like greater affixes, for example, could appear on like iPower 925 items, and we're not raising the iPower ceiling of items beyond 925 as you're going deeper in the pit. Instead, it's more about like as you go deeper in the pit, you're going to get more legendary drops. So this is going to give you more options, more chances of getting things that have like greater affix potential. You know, so that's really more the way that we're handling that. And then, of course, the masterworking materials that you're using to juice up all of your items.
Drummer Boy had asked specifically, can you do groups with in the pit?
Yes. You can party in the pit, yes.
Yes.
You can party in the pit.
And then, let me see.
Let's have a pit party, bro.
Any, like, plan updates, social updates. This is another big question that a lot of people are asking about from within chat. Are there any plans on that or any progress regarding that?
No.
So
the clan system sucks. It's going to suck forever.
Social updates and things we want to talk about soon. But
okay.
We definitely hear the desire from the players that they're looking for more ways to like kind of get into groups and to form pairs with people online as opposed to just like talking in local chat or trade chat or trying to like reach out that way or just going to Discord or just going to external sources. So we do have thoughts on things we want to do to kind of help that process along, but nothing to announce for season 4 at this time. Yeah.
I know there's also there's some comments about like the store, the shop, and things like that with related to items. There's actually, I know last time we had a Campfire chat, I had mentioned like, hey, our team that focuses on like the product team has been taking in a lot of feedback. There's actually going to be some changes here coming really soon that will be offering up new opportunities for people to use some of the platinum that they may have obtained in the battle pass for some really cool looking sets and stuff or cosmetics for their character.
Great.
And we're also, I believe, taking and retroactively changing that portal pack.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually locked per class. So if you were like a necromancer, you could only use one of the colors. That is changing here in the future, where you'll be able to use it. There's no discrimination amongst portal colors, so
that's right.
you will be able to choose exactly what you want. And you know, I will say there's going to be some more significant changes. I know coming with the store that team has been taking in a lot of feedback.
Oh man, microtransaction updates, guys.
More, related to
more ways to spend your money.
Let me see if I can get any more questions. Castordiff says, any PvP news, balance, new rewards?
Nope.
Nothing to announce on PvP right now. The focus of this update has been predominantly on the core underpinnings of our SARPG experience. Trying to make sure
Imagine caring about PvP in Diablo 4.
To pursue once they get to a certain level of power. That we have done a lot, like what Charles talked about, like condensing down a lot of our affixes.
What a fucking joke.
Feel more engaging in general. Going through all of our various classes, trying to open up a lot of new build opportunities. So it's kind of like what we're really trying to do here is respond to a lot of the really, really big major feedback we've been hearing, honestly, since launch. And try to like get a good, big, sizable update for players to go and engage with there. But we didn't spend time in features like PvP, you know, and because that would distract us from what we're really trying to focus on at the time instead.
These things are going to fundamentally change everything, though, like
That's true.
PvP as well.
It
Like
trickles
how
down.
you make a character, the builds you make, how you do everything fundamentally is going to change from this.
Right.
So this was the big thing we're trying to nail, and all of our eyes were focused on that.
That's right.
Dristren asks, I know Uber Uniques cannot be tempered, but can they roll greater affixes, and can they be mastercrafted?
Yes. On both accounts. Uniques can roll greater affixes, just the same as Ancestral Legendaries. It doesn't need to be Ancestral, so it's World Tier 4, same as before. Same concept with Uber Uniques, and even through the Respondent Spark crafting system.
So Uber Uniques can roll with greater affixes?
It comes with an the Uber Unique comes with a greater affix, even when you craft it, just as if it would drop.
That's correct.
So now you got to win the lottery twice.
One last question. This is from GTI 101.
You got to win the lottery within the lottery.
Alternate characters. Do I need to level up my aspects on alternate characters, for example?
Aspects are partition bound. So what I mean by that is if you're playing a seasonal character and you want to play an alt on the seasonal realm, like that alt will also benefit from all the unlocks you've got within your Codex of Power. I do believe your first character.
There is a separation between hardcore and not hardcore characters.
That's correct.
as
Yes,
well.
that's correct.
Hardcore characters are kind of their own thing, even on the seasonal realm.
Yeah.
Awesome. So a lot of info delivered in this this Campfire chat.
Yeah.
Probably the most info we've ever delivered in any Campfire chat or even developer update live stream. But it's important stuff because obviously with Season 4, we have a PTR coming up. For those that may have missed it, it will be on April 2nd through April 9th. And it'll be on PC Battle.net only. So players who want to help test things out,
like I said,
provide feedback, please do so.
Pushing the start of the season back, like making that announcement at the beginning of this was like really fucking shitty.
A new separate PTR.
But everything that they talked about after that point
also does mean Season 3 is going to be extended because we want to make
pretty
sure
fucking
we
good.
get all the feedback from this PTR and all the feedback from the community, and we have
I look forward to trying the PTR shit
for Season 4. So Season 3
and my
is
minions are getting buffed.
May 14th. Season 4, of course, will
Yay!
start on May 14th as well.
They're getting
and
all
we'll
my
be coming out with more
stats.
information on what Season 4 is
pump.
specifically. And all the details that we actually talked about here today will be in a very extensive blog along with all the patch notes of all the like small things like the class changes that Adam actually wasn't able to get through. Yeah. Small changes, small. Will be in those patch notes as well. And we still actually do have another update that will be coming out next week for Diablo 4. And this one has actually been long awaited because this one does include some big quality features on the graphics side for D4.
Really?
And we will have a blog that will be talking about it. As you guys know, ray tracing is coming to D4, and that'll be hitting next week on March 26th. So people will be able to maybe if you've got a rig for it,
we're gonna be tracing rays.
Turn up all your graphical settings, get ray tracing with D4, and we'll also be talking about how console players will also be able to take advantage of it in our blog next week.
Fuck console players.
Lots of stuff coming down, and lots to talk about. Again, next week we'll have all the information on blog and patch notes. But thanks again, everyone.
Nice.
Thanks again, Joe Shelley, who's also still in the room over here.
Nice.
Thanks, Joe.
All right. So, yep. Major takeaways. Season starting later sucks. All the other changes good. More endgame shit to do. Get to fight Andariel. They're buffing my minions. We're going to look at the patch notes next week. It's going to be cool. Yay! Woo! D4 good again, baby!